Hey everybody, and welcome back to Pre-Law Talk. My name is Joshua Garlick. I'm a current BYU Idaho communications student who will be applying to law school very soon. I've created this podcast in order to inform students about pre-law topics such as the LSAT, the application process, law schools, and give some advice. So thus far, we've talked about the different sections of the LSAT. We've talked about reading comprehension, logical reasoning, analytical reasoning, and given a brief overview of the LSAT and some materials that will be useful to you in your preparation for taking that. I really wish you guys the best, and today we're going to be talking about time management, something that is extremely important on the LSAT. The main factor, actually the challenging factor of the LSAT is your ability to do these and acquire these, use these skills that you have quickly in rapid succession on the test. So today we're going to give you a brief outline of what we'll be going over. We'll talk about the individual sections and give a brief, really just simple outline of timing within each of the individual sections. Then we'll talk about general guidelines or for how to prepare or practice with a LSAT test taking like mindset and mind frame. So we'll go from there. Alright, so speaking about the individual sections, just to remind you, each section has to be done within 35 minutes, and the entire LSAT takes about 4.5 hours to complete. So that's something to take into consideration when thinking about taking the LSAT, is that you need to understand how fast you can go at home, but as well you need to understand how fast you can complete the sections under testing conditions. So we'll go into the individual sections and talk about timing within each of the individual sections first. Within the reading comprehension section, you have 4 sections. So that 35 minutes divides up to 8 minutes and 45 seconds per section. You have about 3 minutes per passage to read that passage and understand it fully, get it marked up and diagrammed however you want to do, and 1 minute per question within that section to finish within the 35 minutes. On the logical reasoning section, because there are no individual passages and it's not broken up like the other 2 sections, you have about the same amount of time per question, which is 1 minute and 24 seconds per question. On the analytical reasoning section, because it's just like the reading comprehension section, it's broken up into 4 sections, so you have 8 minutes and 45 seconds per section. You have 3 minutes to diagram each game, and about a minute per question once again. I'll talk a little bit about the writing sample, since I haven't talked much about it anywhere else. So within the writing sample, the biggest tips and advice that I can give are to take your time. A lot of people get done with the writing sample before time is up, and you'll just see them that they'll just sit there and be done, have put their best thought onto paper, and that's great. But I would advise to take your time to outline well what you're going to write before you do it. Also note that you don't have to fill the entire space of the writing sample. You'll have a page and a half about to write and get all your ideas out there for the writing sample, but don't worry too much about timing other than get your outline done well and then express those ideas in an organized fashion. So that's all for at least the principal idea of timing for the sections. So let's move on to general guidelines for preparation and practice. Alright, so whenever you're practicing, you really want to make it as realistic as possible. So within the actual LSAT on test day, you will be allowed an analog watch in order to time yourself and keep pace. So if you're going to be able to use an analog watch within the test, you might want to start using an analog watch while you're preparing in everything you do, to get used to the idea of using an analog watch and looking at it and timing yourself and pacing yourself within each of the sections. Also with timing, I would want to start with smaller bits of the sections and build up to taking full tests and timing full tests. So what I mean by this is, if you're going to practice the logic game section, for example, you might want to practice diagramming those logic games within 3 minutes, and then look at getting down an entire passage or an entire one game within the 8 minutes and 45 seconds. From there, you'll want to try to get the entire 4 passages, the 4 games, within the 35 minutes. And from there, you'll want to be able to do that logic game section within 35 minutes, whether you're taking it first or it's the last section of the actual test that you're going to take. You have to take that into consideration, because I don't know about you, but 4 hours into the test and my mind's a little bit groggy, so you might want to get used to taking each of the sections in a different order so that on test day, it doesn't matter what order they appear in, you're ready for a full test and can complete all the sections of a full test. If you're having trouble finishing sections at the beginning, don't worry about this. What I would do is, if you're going through a full section, mark where time has ended and note that, so that you can figure out, am I taking too much time diagramming? Am I taking too much time answering questions? How many questions am I getting through? Am I able to score as well as I want to within these sections, or do I need to kick it up a notch and read faster or answer questions faster? So make sure that you're marking where you're ending your time and how much time you have left. It also, if you can't finish on time, if test day is coming up and this is your last resort, you might want to look at learning to strategize and cut out questions that are going to be harder, or sections that are going to be harder. So within logic games, you might cut out a full game that is complex and unique and isn't as easy as like a sequential or a grouping game. Within reading comprehension, you might want to cut out a passage that is completely unfamiliar to you and might take more time. Within the logical reasoning section, you might want to cut out those match the flaw questions in order to get to the end and finish the section. But those are last resorts. Once again, you really want to be able to finish the sections within the 35 minutes and be able to go back and look at things rather than just giving up on questions and forfeiting answers. So I'll just talk a little bit about what I did. So I was initially practicing with, I would use my phone and set a timer for 35 minutes per section, and then use my watch to time myself, and I would look at my watch and get used to looking at my analog watch and using that. Eventually, through practice and a lot of consistency with practicing, I could do the sections within the time, within the 35 minutes. But I kept using that watch. Eventually, I got a pace built within each of the sections to the point where I could complete the section without a watch. And actually on test day, I didn't use a watch. I finished the sections fine. I had time left over within the sections so that I could go back and look at more difficult questions that I didn't really understand. So you really want to get into that mode of building a pace, building, a frequency of how many questions per, 10 minutes or, 8 minutes and 45 seconds to get that internalized so that you can, on test day, just kind of whip it out. And that's all I've got for you today. So if you have any other questions about timing or any of the sections of the LSAT, please just message me. Next time we'll be going over some frequently asked questions by students about the LSAT. So if you have any of those questions lingering in your mind, I haven't answered already, please shout out and I'll try to get that into my next podcast, hopefully answering some questions that haven't been answered already. So thanks again for coming and listening to Pre-Law Talk. I hope I'm helping you guys out. Special shout out goes to bensounds.com for all this free royalty-free music. I'll see you next time.